What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Ruxora, and here we do all things card games. Today we're doing another Commander deck tech, where I took a look at a decklist submission, analyze the commander, the individual card choices, as well as the strategy overall, and at the end I'll give it a rating out of 10. Today we have a casual deck list with a cool new commander from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Very interesting set. Obviously, like I really liked this set because it introduced me to Stella Lee Wildcard, just a very powerful card in competitive Commander, just a really cool card overall. Here we're taking a look at the casual format with all the new interesting mechanics. We got like crime stuff, it's pretty interesting, and we're kind of looking at some cards like we haven't seen before. Anything that targets, right, and we'll kind of talk about that. And then also like, the spree mechanic, which is kind of just more interesting kicker, but I think is still cool. Obviously, a lot of mechanics kind of resemble kicker. The plot mechanic I thought was interesting, but maybe is more aimed at constructed. I don't find the plot mechanic particularly powerful for a commander, particularly in competitive EDH. But there are still some decent cards, right? Or cards you could just play that happen to have plot, and maybe we'll see some of those here. I haven't fully looked at this list in depth, but yeah, we're gonna take a look at it. But before we do, if you enjoy the content, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Remember, we're always kind of looking at my channel and kind of seeing what does well. And I obviously have been seeing that the Commander deck decks do seem to be doing really well. So obviously I'm going to be doing these as much as possible. But obviously in addition to some of my Lorcana content. Yeah, keep up the likes and keep up the comments and everything if you enjoy this kind of content. I've definitely been seeing that feedback and definitely looking for it. So all right, without further ado, let's talk about our commander for this deck. Alrighty, and here we have the one, the only Vraska the Silencer. Kind of getting to see all these new, these old characters, but in a new setting, and kind of new instances of the card. So Vraska the Silencer here, 1 green black, for a 3/3 legendary creature, Gorgon Assassin, which is a relevant subtype there. It's got Death Touch, and it says whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, you may pay 1. If you do, return that card to the battlefield tapped under your control. It's a treasure artifact with tap, sacrifices artifact, add 1 mana of any color, and it loses all other card types. Now, note that the important thing to observe about this card is that they do lose all card types, as in if a creature dies, right, it'll no longer be a creature. It'll just be an artifact, but it does not lose any of its abilities. So the important thing here to note is that any enter the battlefield effect, any static effect, any other abilities on the card will still be active, assuming they function, right? Obviously, anything mentioning power and toughness won't really work, right? But yeah, you just get to kind of steal effects from your opponent. We see this a lot from black cards, getting to kind of steal from the opponent, right? Take stuff from their graveyard, take stuff from their deck, take stuff from their hand. It's kind of a sub theme of black, but it is something that black has been known to do. In the past, has been more Demir, right? Kind of steal your opponent's stuff, but it's doing this. Vraska is doing it in kind of the Golgari way, which we'll kind of see. So yeah. So here we have the deck list here again by Professor Amateur. Again, thank you so much for the submission. If you guys have a deck that you guys want me to analyze or just review or show off, you can do so by just posting your list in the comments, or you also can join the Discord. We've got a section for that. Always looking for submissions. Always love that. It makes making these more often easier. So if you like these videos, make sure to submit those suggestions. So essentially we don't have a primer here because this is just a casual list. There aren't a ton of combos, or not convoluted combos. Obviously helped with this deck a little bit. They were kind of asking for card selection or card discussions. But yeah, essentially we just have a mid-range, just a casual Vraska themed deck, right? So you see we have all five. I think we're missing, there's one that we decided was pretty bad. I don't remember. I'm not going to look it up, right? But we have 5 Vraska planeswalkers, so all very on theme. So you got I think this is the original one, right? That ends up making assassin creatures, right? And then if you ultimate and then they lose the game and all that sort of stuff. A lot of them have like some removal attached to them, right? This destroys a creature. This kind of also destroys something and gives them an makes a treasure. This also destroys. This is basically whatever it is, abrupt decay on a stick, right? And then this card's pretty interesting that we'll kind of talk about because there's a big death touch theme here, right? So Vraska having death touch, and then obviously her ability wanting your opponent's creatures to die. There's a lot of death touch creatures, and then there's a lot of synergy with the mechanic death touch, or I guess the keyword. Oh, that is death touch. So yeah. So let's talk about some of the more interesting things that we're doing, right? So the big thing here is using these arrow effects. So pathway arrows, thornbite staff, and viridian longbow are the 3 that I am seeing. I don't think there's another one. Yeah, there are no other effects. Obviously, there's some other similar effects that are more minor, but so things like bite down. But yeah. So the way these cards work, right, is they say the equipped creature has pay 2 tap and deal 1 damage to target creature, right? All of them have some kind of effect like that. Viridian Longbow just says tap and do it. Thornbite Staff, right, does it. And then it also says whenever a creature is put into the graveyard from play, untap it. So Thornbite Staff is kind of the really, really nice one. And the reason why is because, right, as long as you have a that attached to a death touch creature, whether that's Vraska, Ambush Viper, and some of the other creatures in this deck, right, the death touch creature deals the damage, right, or like using the pathway arrows or whatever, and it sees, hey, I am a death touch creature. I dealt 1 damage to something. Since I have death touch, that thing just dies. It doesn't matter if it's a 10-10, right, or whatever. Million, the death touch plus the pathway arrows, right, means that the creature just dies. So that's a really awesome, repeatable way to kill creatures and get multiple Vraska effects or just any kind of kill effect off. So very, very, very powerful there. And then the rest of the deck is just kind of designed to support that strategy and kind of use that value and convert it into some wins. So let's talk about, I guess, the Vraska here while we're at it, right? We can kind of look at the text here. So obviously it has this -2 of making an assassin with death touch. That's really nice, as we mentioned. Just getting to make 2 death touchers, basically, if you're successful, is nice. And then it has this other clause about planeswalkers, which is pretty minor, but it has this really awesome passive ability of giving your stuff counters every time one of your death touchers touches a player or planeswalkers. So, like, if you have this on the board, like, yes, your opponent's not going to want to trade with your creatures, assuming that they're trading with actual cards and not just like tokens or something. But if they don't, right, then your stuff gets bigger and it's going to be harder to trade with them profitably. So this does really good if you have a deck with lots of death touchers, which again, having a death toucher in the command zone makes that pretty easy. And our creature slots, we'll go over like some of the more simple ones. We got a lot of ramp cards: Birds of Paradise, Delighted Halfling, Deathbright Shaman, Elves of Deep Shadow, Elvish Mystic, bunch of elves, right? I don't think there's any other dorks here. Yeah. And then there's some other kind of synergies with killing stuff. So one of my favorite cards in Golgari, I think one of the first cards that really got me to like Golgari as a color is Shovel, Bane of Monsters. Black-green for a 1/3 death touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if opponent does not have anything... Sorry, if your opponent's control, so it's even worse in multiplayer because you can't put it on multiple things, right? Basically, you get to put a bounty on something, and then if you successfully kill something with a bounty on it, you gain 3 life and draw a card. So obviously, Shovel having Death Touch, right, could just do that, but it works really, really well with removal spells, which again we have a ton of, and we'll kind of get to. So yeah, kind of refunding you even more for succeeding in killing whatever you target. Yeah. Oh, I guess Poison Dart Frog here functioning as both a mana dork and a creature that can have Death Touch. Super, super nice. Good to have that kind of overlap, or right, of a mana dork that also has Death Touch. Not really a common thing in the game right now. Yeah. And then I'm going to show off some of the really powerful cards here in Glissa Sunslayer and Glissa the Traitor. Both of these cards have First Strike and Death Touch, which is a super potent combination. Again, makes it really hard to block, which should mean that they get to oh, and this also says whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you get to return an artifact from your graveyard to your hand. So that's also pretty relevant. So both of these, right, kind of serve two functions, right? Obviously having first strike and death touch, but then also Glissa Sunslayer providing some extra value, and then Glissa the Traitor providing you some recursion should your artifacts like your Thornbite Staff get removed. Should be a way to get those back. Yeah, so super like that a lot, what else was I gonna say? Oh, and then we can talk about some of the crime stuff here. So as I mentioned, right, crime letting us kind of re-examine how we kind of evaluate cards. Right, so crimes giving you a bonus anytime you target opponents anything they control or any cards in their graveyard, right? So any of those things is a crime. It's illegal. It's bad. Obviously, just kidding. But that's been the joke. So yeah, so we have Hard Bristle Bandit, 1 in a green, 1/1. Tap, add 1 mana of any color, right? So classic mana dork text. But if you commit a crime, you get to untap it, but it only triggers once each turn. But that's actually pretty nice with your pathway arrow effects or your Thornbite Staff or your longbow effects, right? So Thornbite Staff, right, untaps the creature whenever something dies, but costs 2 to activate. So if you tap your bandit and then target something with Thornbite Staff or longbow or whatever, right, you untap your bandit, and you can potentially use it to activate more of your Death Touch or artifacts combos, or just play more removal, right, and just continuously commit crimes. Again, this is only once a turn, but remember that it still works if you play an instant on your opponent's turn. So potentially a lot of value that you can gain from the bandit. And kind of the same thing with Free Strider Lookout, 3/3 with Reach, and then whenever you commit a crime, you basically get a land off of the top 5 cards of your deck. Just providing you with some more ramp should you need it. So very nice kind of synergy there. And again, it's being able to continuously commit crimes with the Thornbite Staffs and all of those effects. It should be pretty powerful. So what else we got? So we got Eternal Witness again for more recursion. Pretty standard stuff there. I love Mastermind Plum. Giving you extra advantage for using treasures to cast spells. So again, you do get to get the cards that you get off of Vraska are treasures. They are considered treasures, and so if there's anything that mentions that, like Plum, they will work with Vraska. So that's again some nice synergy there. A little bit of graveyard interaction, but nothing too crazy. I don't think that's the main reason. I think the main reason this card is here is for that second line of text. We got Plague Crafter here. We don't have the other one, I don't think, right? Yeah, we just have Plague Crafter here, but a lot of these, everyone sacrifices a creature effect, right? So Plague Crafter, we got Shieldred Edict and Liliana's Triumph. There's some other interesting effects as well, right? But these cards are really nice because they potentially give you 3 triggers off of Vraska, right? In a typical pod of Commander, you're going to get you should have 3 creatures on the battlefield by the time that you're doing this, right? And so you do that. You pay 1 for each of them, and you get 3 treasures onto your field, and boom, seems super good. So like to see that. Murderous Rider here, just a kind of all around good card. Removal spell plus creature if you need. Oh, I didn't see this. Rattleback Apothecary, So it's a 3/2 death touch just by itself already. So already that hits a lot of notes. And then whenever you commit a crime, target creature you control gains menace or lifelink until end of turn. So potentially making your death touchers even harder to block. Seems pretty good. Yeah. And again, just the big thing of just having that death touch and having a certain threshold of death touch creatures should be pretty nice. Um, Next up, we've got Grim Hireling. If you know from CDH, this is a really, really powerful card if you're planning on attacking with creatures. So just getting those extra treasures and then using those treasures to remove stuff. So again, can even work well with Vraska again. Again, those cards that you get off are treasures, so you can use those to activate Grim Hireling's second ability. So this all around just works really, really well, right? Making like you have death touchers, so people aren't going to want to block your stuff. You're going to get a lot of treasures. You're going to be able to kill people's things with Grim Hireling, and then those treasures that you get off of Vraska, right, will help continuously activate Grim Hireling more and more. So yeah, it seems like the perfect card to have in this kind of deck. It just hits all of those notes, right? All those different aspects. Really, really cool to see. Again, I typically think of this with Najila or something like that, Dargo or anything like that. But seeing this here in a casual setting and still using a powerful card, but just not in the broken way, is still pretty nice. Another Golgari card that I love, Pelucranos Unchained. 4 mana 6/6 basically, escapes as a 12/12, and then it does a really good job of fighting, and then being a recursive card, right? The escape mechanic being really nice. Works pretty well again with if you end up giving it death touch, or if you have if you want just a way to continuously kill things, Pelucranos is a good card. So I again in Historic or whatever, I typically saw Pelucranos join Shovel. Both of these cards work really well together. Yeah. We've got Mazurek, Krull Death Priest. Never heard of this card before looking at this deck, and it's pretty insane. Whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, you put a counter on each of your things, including itself, right? And so again, it's just a really nice curve topper for Vraska. You sack some things, all your stuff gets counters. Your mana dorks, right? All of a sudden become huge. And obviously, we also have things to force them to sacrifice with things like Plaguecrafter and Shieldred's Edict, as I mentioned. Seedborn Muse is just nice as, again, if you don't have Thornbite Staff, Viridian Longbow and Pathway Arrows can be used pretty effectively to just get a bunch of value with Seedborn Muse. Again, another card that I'm more used to seeing in a competitive manner. I'm wondering if this will be a little bit too much value for a casual table. Again, depends on what power level you're playing at. So just take that with a grain of salt if you try and play this at your local table. And then the last card here, creature I should say, behaving as a win condition. So Marionette Master, Fabricate 3. So typically you're going to use the put 3 counters on Marionette Master. And then whenever an artifact is put in the graveyard, target opponent loses life equal to its power, which will be 4. So then all of a sudden your Vraska the Silencer, treasure tokens, right, are now doming a player for 4. That's pretty nice. And then Decide Below the Vault kind of doing the same thing, but a little bit weaker, but cheaper than Marionette Master. But Marionette Master is definitely the harder hitting effect, but Decide Below the Vault also kind of works well. All right, so onto the sorcerers here. These are all pretty standard Golgari cards that you should expect to see in a lot of lists at the casual level. Again, I'll add that caveat. So we got Farseek, Nature's Lore, Rampant Growth, and 3 visits as ramp spells. Pretty standard. Regrowth for more graveyard recursion. Again, really, really want to make sure that these artifacts stay on the battlefield. Some permanent removal in Maelstrom Pulse and Culling Ritual. Yeah, and then some kind of board wraths if you need it in Damnation and Toxic Deluge. Deluge being extra nice as a way to wrath the board of all things with power or toughness 2 or less. Toughness 2 or less, right? And then Vraska can stick around. Instance here, we've got an interesting one that a lot of casual players might not be familiar with. This card's really powerful. Legolas's Quick Reflexes, 1 green for an instant with Split Second, so can't be countered, right? And it's pretty hard to stop this card from resolving. Untap target creature until end of turn. It gains Hexproof, Reach, and whenever this creature becomes tapped, deals damage to its power damage equal to its power to up to 1 target creature, right? So a protection spell that also can function as a fight spell. That's not even a fight. I think we call it a bite. Again, don't quote me on that. Oh, I guess, yeah, because of bite down or stuff like it. Yeah, so super powerful card, and is pretty likely to resolve if you cast it. Speaking of, I also want to mention, speaking of protection spells, Heroic Intervention. This card coming a little bit down in price. I remember at one point it was like $17 or something like that. Getting reprinted recently, which is super nice. So if you're looking to pick up a copy, now's the perfect time. I think $8 for this caliber of card is pretty reasonable. Again, especially at the casual level. Noxious Arrival, right? Kind of behaving as extra copies of Regrowth and Eternal Witness. Abrupt Decay and Assassin's Trophy because we need removal. We talked about Bite Down, Shooter's Edict, Liliana's Triumph, and Inferno Grasp, which is good removal spells. That's here is, again, another Split Second card. Man, they really love putting Split Second on these cards. A way to potentially remove multiple creatures with 1 spell. Super powerful, bit expensive, right? But still, it will probably do enough if you cast it. And then Deadly Dispute and Fanatical Offering here as ways to kind of sacrifice artifacts or sacrifice creatures and kind of turn them into some card advantage. And again, kind of synergizing with Marionette Master and Disciple of the Vault, right? Both of these add, especially Deadly Dispute, adding a treasure to the field, right? This adding a map, just kind of adding to that kind of aristocratic sacrifice theme here. For artifacts, we already talked about the arrows and such. We got a little bit of ramp here. Lotus Petal, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Talisman, Mind Stone, and Golgari's Signet. All these cards are pretty standard. We have all of the boots. Not all of the boots. We can't run whatever it's called, lightning greaves, because we need to be able to equip our longbows onto our guy. That makes sense. So Swiftfoot Boots is the alternative, right? And then new card here, Lava Spur Boots, a kind of a cheaper card to play and equipped, but only giving ward 1. Giving an additional power is nice as well. But yeah, this card's, I'd be interested to kind of experiment or see how this card plays out. I guess it's a little bit weak, but again, it's probably fine. Again, since we can't run Lightning Greaves. But Swiftfoot Boots is awesome to protect your commander. And then the only other card here is Bow of Nylea for our artifacts here, giving attacking creatures Death Touch, right? So again, working with the theme that we got going on here with the Vraskas and the Death Touch and the killings and everything. And then has a lot of different modes here that I won't go over, right? But just mainly playing it for that first effect. For enchantments here, we've got Kai's Ghost Swarm, a way to kind of protect, again, your important creatures. Vraska or one of your planeswalkers is nice. Bond's Mortality is really important as a way to kind of get around Indestructible. A lot of the cards, and Hexproof, again, a lot of the cards in this deck rely on targeting and destroying your opponent's creatures. So if you can't do that, you're going to have a hard time. So make sure that you can do that. Make sure to run this card. I think this is a really interesting tech for this deck. Yeah, cool. New OTJ card. They printed a bunch of these blank character joints up, and all of them are these legendary enchantments. They all have a thing when they're played, and then a static ability, and I find them really interesting. Again, kind of like the Oaths. They remind me very much of the Oaths from Oath of the Gatewatch, I think it was, right? That would make sense. But yeah, Vraska joins up here, green-black for a legendary enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you put a Death Touch counter on each creature you control. So everything you have currently on the battlefield gets death touch. Very, very interesting. And then whenever a legendary creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So again, kind of like the Vraska here, providing a lot of death touch about like instances, and then also making it so that your Vraskas, your Glissas, your Plucronoses, any of those things, if they start dealing damage to your opponent again, and they probably will because they're going to have death touch and your opponents are going to want to keep their creatures, you get to turn those into extra cards, and that'll be really awesome. Viridian Revel here. I've never seen this card. Whenever an artifact is put into the grave in an opponent's graveyard from the battlefield, I guess I should say, you may draw a card. Oh, so this works with Vraska, actually. Again, if I'm reading this correctly, and I think I am, right? When you steal a card with Vraska, right, you're stealing the card, but it becomes an artifact, and then whenever the card leaves play, right, it does go back to the opponent's graveyard. It does count as going to the opponent's graveyard. Right, so Viridian Revel should see, hey, this artifact that was my opponent's card went back to their graveyard. The artifact was put into their yard, so I get to draw a card. So that's pretty cool. I hope that's how it works. I definitely think it is. So that's pretty cool synergy there. Like to see that. As opposed to just like some other, random generic card draw spell. And then Death Ritual, enchantment with Morbid at the beginning of each end step. If a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. So note that says each end step. So again, as if we're doing the Seaborn Muse thing or the Thornbite Staff thing, and we're continuously killing a creature each turn, we're going to draw a lot of cards off of this. Again, like to see these over just like the generic, Phyrexian Arena or Sylvan Library garbage, right? And that actually does well because it is a pretty cheap deck, as we see down here, right? Adding something like Sylvan Library would cost a considerable amount to this deck, so you'll love to see it. Speaking of, I know everybody really loves this card, Revel in Riches. Everybody loves these alternative win conditions. 4 and a black for an enchantment. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you make a treasure token. Awesome. Right, so kind of doubling up on Vraska, right? So you don't get 2 copies of the card that you steal, right? But you get the card that becomes a treasure token, and then you get the treasure token off of Revel in Riches, which is nice. And then it works really, really well because it says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. So again, if we're doing our thing with Thornbite Staff, continuously killing creatures, right, you could play this, and then by the time it comes back to your turn, you could have 10 treasures, and boom, you just win the game. Super, super cool win condition. And otherwise, I think this deck would definitely have a slow time winning the game, right? Waiting for your opponents to play creatures so that you can kill them and then sack them to Marionette Master would be pretty hard. But I didn't mention Dockside Chef here, but I think people can kind of guess why that's there. Missed that one. Apologies. But yeah, Revel in Riches I was super excited to talk about because, again, it's casual. The game is likely to be pretty slow, and obviously we're not doing any crazy combos here that instantly win the game, right? But Thornbite Staff and Vraska and whatnot should be slow enough that it's appropriate for a casual table, but decisive enough that, again, assuming you can execute your game plan, you should win the game in a concise manner. And I don't mean that in the sense that it's like immediate, but right, that the it will not take eons and eons and eons to end the game, which I often find happens in casual games. And one of the reasons why I don't really engage in casual games too much anymore, unless I have a ton of time on my hands or whatnot. All right, looking at the lands here, 28 lands is nice. I think I see a lot of people running a high amount, something like 35 lands, which I think is a lot. But here, reasonable amounts of lands, as again, we have some mana rocks, plus a lot of mana dorks here. So again, and Professor Amateur, who's is used to building competitive decks. Again, not building any kind of crazy deck here, but still employing the same kind of lessons that you learn from CDH and kind of applying those to the casual deck so that your deck can be efficient, not like competitive, efficient. I think it's important to make that distinction. But yeah, so we have again a bunch of green black duels. We'll point out some of the interesting cards here. So you got Arcane Lighthouse, again getting rid of Hexproof and Shroud, so that we can kill their stuff. I wanted to mention the Surveillance. Surveillance are great. Run them. Takanuma to buy back some creatures. Not choosing to run Boseiju, probably fine. And then War Room, good in a low color deck. And then the best land here that I was super hyped to see, Forbidden Orchard. Right, so tap to add 1 mana of any color. No paying life, no nothing, but whenever you tap it, you do have to give somebody a colorless spirit. Oh no, we have to give them the colorless spirit. Oh wait, we're trying to kill our opponent's things. And so if our opponents are not helping us out by playing out creatures, we can go ahead and give them one and immediately kill it off with something like Thornbite Staff or Shieldridge Edict or something like that. So yeah, super cool to see a rare occasion of Forbidden Orchard is usually only good in specific decks, and here we actively want it. We actively wanted it in our hand. I almost think maybe even something like Crop Rotation to tutor for it would be super cool. Right, there's no other lands that you'd really crop rot for, so that seems reasonable. Bajuga Bog and Peatland also good lands to just kind of have. So yeah, maybe crop rot would be like a cool add to this list, but again, trying to keep it pretty tame. Again, not trying to do anything too busted here. Again, just trying to play Vraska, play cards that work well with it, and just kind of let the value happen naturally. I don't think that there are any like again combo potentials that are likely to happen with Vraska itself, right? But you know, it's still cool to just, you know, the thing that we all like about casual, right, is just you get to play these silly cards that again normally wouldn't work, but because they work with your commander, right? Again, like Viridian Revel would not be a card that we would think about in any sense of the word. So yeah, so is it for the individual card choices. Again, the strategy is pretty sound. Again, there's some cards here that are again more for the Vraska theme. Again, like this Vraska Regal Gorgon. It's still a fine card. It does kind of do some things. Gives a creature counter and menace. You know, it has a really game-ending ultimate. So you know, it can certainly do things, but yeah, some of these cards are more for fun, right? But then yeah, we have some like also I think Ambush Viper. You could totally find a better card than Ambush Viper, but I think it's funny. I love that. But yeah, as for the deck, again, obviously it's not perfect, but it's not designed to be perfect. Again, it's designed to be just kind of a fun deck. Again, built around Vraska, and I think it's really good. Yeah, I think this is my example of a 10. I don't think there are any cards that don't make sense, right? There's not a single card in here where I'm like, why is this card here? It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And there's a lot, again, the one thing that I would say again is Seedborn Muse might be too powerful of a card. Like Seedborn Muse, Grim Hireling might be too heavy hitting. I mean, like, again, maybe a casual table doesn't perceive them as such, but right, Calling Ritual, kind of the same. You know, there's a couple feels bad cards like Toxic Deluge and Calling Ritual, right? That's right, but that's gonna happen anyways with a deck that's intent on killing creatures. But anyways, besides that, right, I think every single card in this list has a role, does its role, and there's not really a card that I would swap it out for that wouldn't be similar, if not the same, albeit again maybe a little bit underpowered. But again, I'm giving it a 10 with the thought in mind that this is supposed to be a casual deck. It's supposed to be a flavor around Vraska. We're not trying to do anything broken, right? We're just trying to do the Vraska thing. So yeah, I think this deck does it really well. I'd really love to see like someone take this to a casual table, play it, and I think people would be delighted, right? I think that's why I envision this, right? I envision taking this to a table and someone going, "Oh, Vraska, interesting," and then seeing the game play out and someone saying, "Hey, like that's pretty cool. You did this cool thing." Like whether you won the game or not, right? Whether the team, they see you about to do the whatever the revel in riches thing, and they go, kill him, and you die or whatever, right? Like regardless of who wins or whatever, or right, the idea of the deck and the way it plays out is hopefully pretty interesting. Yeah, what do you guys think? Again, I know some people don't particularly like instant win cards. Some people also don't like someone continuously killing their creatures. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Is this a deck that you'd be happy to play against at a casual table? Is there any way that we can kind of make this competitive? Any ideas, right? I always like seeing if we can kind of turn all the dials up to 11 for a potentially competitive deck. Personally, I don't see that happening with this card, but I'm all for ideas. Yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. Again, thanks so much to Professor Amateur for making this. Also, you can check out the funny title. Always comes up with funny titles for their decks. But yeah, if you guys again have lists that you guys want me to analyze and talk about just like this, do so in the comments, or we got a Discord. You can come hang out with me and all the buddies, and yeah. And yeah, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Again, I love doing these. I love doing any kind of videos talking about games. We did again some Commander deck building sessions, many years ago. I'm happy to do that again if that's something people are interested in. Yeah, but hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys in the next video.